Good evening, and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight, I have a really interesting guest. I think you're going to enjoy him. He is very academic. He has written several books. He is just well versed in a lot of things: music, paranormal, Bigfoot, you name it. He has a master's degree in communication, which probably will be handy with me tonight. And he also has a bachelor degree in psychology. He has worked with addictions. He has worked in the field of psychology. He has been a journalism with um, music, the interest of music, and he's into paranormal. And I cannot do anything but slaughter his introduction, so I'm going to let him give you the correct introduction. And I'd like to welcome Max Furek.
Thank you, Victoria. And I think I'll slaughter the intro. How's that? Just to change things up. But so my name is Maxim Furek. I'm a former rock journalist, and I wrote several books about rock and roll. And rock and roll is my passion. I just love it. And as a baby boomer, our group was born between 1946 to 1964, and music was so important to us as far as civil rights and women's rights and the environment and Vietnam and all that. So music played an integral part with my group, as it does with everybody. Music is just sort of like the records of our lives, and so I was writing a rock biography about the song Timothy. In 1971, there was a song called Timothy, recorded by a northeastern Pennsylvania group called the Boys. And Timothy, the song, was about cannibalism in a mine. It was just a very gross song that did quite well on Billboard. But the more I researched it, the more I saw that Timothy, the song, was a lot like Sheppton, the mine disaster. So back home, we had a lot of anthracite coal mines, northeastern Pennsylvania. That's all, hard coal country. And the Sheppton mine disaster in 1963 had a similar situation where 3 guys were trapped for 2 weeks, and only 2 came out. Only 2 were extricated. And when the 2 guys came out, they said, "Well, what happened to your buddy?" And there were allegations of cannibalism back in 1963 as well as today. And they never were able, they were totally unsubstantiated, they were horrible, but they were never able to go and totally get away from that rumor that there was cannibalism involved at the Sheppton mine disaster. So the song Timothy that came out later just seemed to resurrect that. And as I did my research into Sheppton, I found out that there were all these paranormal themes, such as out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and afterlife experiences. And the afterlife experience, this is pretty interesting, but Pope John the 23rd had died in June of 63. The Sheppton disaster took place in August of 63. So in all 3 cases of the Pope's miracles, his alleged miracles, his purported miracles, all 3 of them happened after he had died. And he was canonized in 2014, and Vatican academics claim that Sheppton was one of his miracles. So pretty amazing, amazing things that happened there. So that book came out in 2016, and Sheppton opened up the doors to the paranormal for me, as far as being invited on podcasts, being invited to paranormal expos. Australia's Mysterious Universe did a 90-minute program on the Sheppton book. And it was just pretty amazing that it happened rapidly, that it was just happening sequentially. So, I can't explain it. I just think maybe it was meant to be, but certainly I don't think I was putting the energies into it. I think there were other energies working through me, being channeled through me. That's how I look at it. I've tried to try to figure it out, but I'm glad I'm here. The paranormal community has been awesome and respectful, and there's just so much energy and just curiosity and fascination, in this in the paranormal, whether it's about demons or cryptids or flying saucers or whatever, But I mean, I really am fascinated by all of it, And I think I'm like everybody else in that, there's an Indiana Jones in all of us, that we're looking for answers. We want to go out there on that quest and find that holy grail, to find, see what's at the end of the journey. And so I think that's what a lot of what motivates me, just that insane curiosity.
You have authored a couple of books, but your recent book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, can we go into that?
Yeah, Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, Exhibit A. That was published by Hangar 1, and there's my grunge shot. That was in Greenwich Village. That's, as I used to, an old rock journalism. But what I do is I ask this. I say, if it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? And I explore some of the other options, as have John Keel and Jacques Vallée and Albert Einstein. And I say that maybe it just might be an interdimensional thing, that maybe Bigfoot may be a shapeshifter that goes from one dimension or one parallel universe to ours and back. I mean, we don't know. We have, 4 dimensions? Let me see, height, width, length, and time. Some people think that there's a 5th dimension, or a string theory that may include everything else, that may explain everything else. So again, we don't know, but we don't have all the science. We misinterpret a lot of the science and misread it. But there's a lot that we don't know. But the interdimensional theory is just one thing that I believe a lot of people are looking at as a possibility. And not only with Bigfoot, but also with flying saucers, with UFOs, UAPs, that they seem to do the same thing. You see them and then you don't. With Bigfoot, we talk about the bilocation, the rapid transport, that Bigfoot may be in front of you and then it's behind you. So too many people seeing the same thing, too many witnesses, too many people seeing Bigfoot along with orbs or flying saucers, which lends me to believe that there's this paranormal element with Bigfoot. And I go beyond the flesh and blood. And again, I straddle both camps. And again, I can easily defend the Sasquatch hunters because there's a lot of evidence on their side. Now, we've never come up with a body, and I don't believe we've come up with adequate DNA, but we have the eyewitnesses, and many times numerous eyewitnesses. We've had the smells, that's pretty endemic with Bigfoot, the sounds, and then also, like as Jeff Meldrum is going to tell you this on Saturday, the footprints larger than any human or any bear, and also the stride larger than anything that any man or bear can make. So there's proof there, but unfortunately the scientific community needs proof that they need a hypothesis, and then they need proof that could be replicated. And so far, we haven't come up with that as far as I know. But other than the Patterson Gilman film, which is my favorite bit of clue,
That had a big influence on you.
Quite a bit, yeah. And in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I talk a lot about the Patterson Gilman film, and it sort of is our holy grail. I mean, they have not been able to go and refute it and say that it didn't happen. A lot of the primatologists have looked at it and believe that it's not a man in a monkey suit, but it is an actual cryptid. You could see the glute muscles. It's not a suit. You don't see any zippers. And with the stride, with the way it moved and everything, it just seems to be authentic. There are interesting stories with John Napier. John Napier was a British primatologist, and in 1972, he was working at the Smithsonian. He had a chance to go and look at that Patterson Gilman film. Now, that's only 58 seconds long. I mean, if it was a hoax, you would think that these guys would have made it, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but only 58 minutes long. But John Napier said, nah, this can't be authentic. This has to be a hoax. And he was based that on the fact that Patty, what they called the female Bigfoot, that Patty had an upper body like an ape and a lower body like a hominid, a bipedal hominid. So he said that what they were doing is that they made this hoax, mixing up the apes and men. But in 1974 in Ethiopia, they discovered Lucy. Now, Lucy, of course, was Australopithecus, which is man's earliest relative so far. And they named Lucy after the Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, probably before your time, right?
Yes, sir. That's a big word for me. Australopithecus, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's a name that they gave Lucy. So it was Australopithecus, and Lucy is the oldest known hominid on record. So here's the thing. Here's where the Patterson Gilman film came in. So John Napier heard about Lucy in 1974, and he said, "Wait a second. Lucy has an upper body like an ape, with the arms that could go and climb trees and everything, and it was bipedal, could walk on 2 feet like a human." John Napier said, "Wait a second. I've been wrong all these years. I believe that this find in Ethiopia, this Australopithecus, is proof that the Patterson Gilman film may be accurate." And he admitted that he was wrong. So he was one of many primatologists that took a look at that film and said that they believed that it was accurate. But it was interesting because he said that in 72, and then in 74 they found it, and they were just driving along, and it just happened to be out there. And Lucy was maybe 3.5, maybe 4 foot tall. So, but that was our earliest relative. And then, of course, our closest relative was Neanderthal man. And at one time, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, and Neanderthal walked the earth together. 30% of us have as much as 4% Neanderthal DNA. And you might have talked to people who do that. What is it, 24andMe, whatever those genetic tests are. And they find they have some Neanderthal DNA, which is not unusual. But as far as I understand that with Neanderthal DNA, you may get hair color, sleeping patterns, and some cardiac anomalies. I don't know what else, they may give us. But so Neanderthal, and it's interesting too, because Neanderthal was, we have a lot of information about how they lived. We know that they buried their dead. They had family structures. They lived in caves, sandstone caves. And so when they died, they were well preserved. I mean, we have a really good fossil record. So there's some researchers that believe that as man developed cognitive abilities, the ability to think and to make tools and all that, that Neanderthal developed psychic abilities. And there's some information about that, which is really, really an interesting, fascinating, hypothesis. But I talk in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot about the concept of the missing link. And I'm sort of like preaching in school, because I claim that there's no such thing as a missing link. Man and ape came from the same single creature, a single common ancestor, SCA. And at one point, the apes branched off and climbed the trees and evolved, and then later man branched off and climbed the trees and then came down. as as Homo sapiens and Homo erectus. So that when people talk about the missing link, I think they're misinformed. And a lot of us want to find the connection between Bigfoot and man, and so they're looking for that missing link. So I think that's where that comes from.
That's pretty incredible. Now, you dedicated 2 chapters to the cold region hoodoo. Explain that one to me.
Yeah, that was my previous book, Cold Region Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit. And what I was doing was, first of all, hoodoo could be a blessing or a curse. And with the Sheppton miners, as an example, they were rescued. I mean, they were blessed. And then after they were rescued, before there was even a celebration, there was the criticism, the accusations that they cannibalized their fellow miner. And I remember the one story was one miner's name was Davy Felon, and the Chicago Daily News accused him. They asked him a question about, did you actually cannibalize your co-worker? And Felon said, only evil men would ask such a question. He said, what a horrible question to ask. He said, no, they did not cannibalize Louis Bova, but that rumor, and I don't know, that rumor just continues to this day, including the missing miner's son believe that they ate his father. So yeah, whenever they interview him, he says he believes that's a possibility. It's just a horrible thing to even hear him say.
Yeah, so that kind of merged into the Bigfoot world, the paranormal, and the philosophy of it. I find that really interesting, and I'm totally going to do some more research on that and reach out to you. And that's wow, because they say some people say Bigfoots cannibalize each other, and cannibalize each other.
Oh yes, okay, I heard that. Yeah, that's why we can't find the bodies and all. Yeah,
but I also heard they bury them too.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those mysteries out there that I don't think we'll ever know. But I mean, that goes above my head. That's why I don't even try to call myself a researcher, because I just don't think those are answers we'll ever have. Now, the Albert Ostman.
Oh
Did
yeah.
I get that name right?
Yeah.
1924. Can we touch on that one?
Yeah, Albert Osman was let me see if I remember, he was a Swedish Canadian logger. And what was happening, somebody was messing with his campsite, and they were taking his food and leaving tracks and everything. So what he did was, he was going to surprise him. He hid inside his sleeping bag with his rifle, and he was going to go on. When he heard him, he was going to pop up and shoot him. Well, what happens was he felt himself being carried, and it seemed like miles and miles. And finally, they put him down. And here he was with a family of Sasquatch, a mother and father, and a younger, son and daughter. And they fed him sweet grass, and they were curious about him, and they watched him, and everything was kind of good. And then he got the premonition that they were going to use him for breeding purposes. So he's freaking out. So he says, I got to get out of here. Now, he had chewing tobacco. So what he did was, he was able to entice the male, the elderly male Sasquatch, to eat the chewing tobacco, and the Bigfoot got sick. So while he was getting sick, Osman took off. He took off and he went back, and then he didn't say anything. And this was 1924. And then years later, it might have been decades later, when Sasquatch sightings were being seen, especially in British Columbia, because that's the epicenter. And there were a lot more sightings there in British Columbia first than there were in the Pacific Northwest, Chicago, California, and Washington State. But he told John Green, and John Green was one of the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, one of the pioneers who researched Sasquatch before the internet, before we had any kind of technological anything. And they would hear about this, and they would interview the witnesses and write it down and do the footprint casting and everything. But John Green believed that Albert Osman was telling the truth. Now, with my research, the only thing at Osman, he never talked about the smell. Everybody talks about the horrific smell of Sasquatch, like a wet dog or like rotted eggs, like garbage. But he didn't talk about that smell with these Sasquatches, but he did talk about the family structure. And this was before everybody was able to Google Bigfoot and find out what they allegedly look like and how they behaved. So John Green believed that Albert Osman's experience in 1924 was real, and he wrote about this. John Green was the first one. He was a journalist, first one to interview him. What's interesting, the 1924 Bigfoot abduction is sort of parallels the, what was it, 1962 or 63 Betty and Barney Hill abduction in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where they claimed that they were abducted and probed and all this other stuff. And then they found out about it through the regressive hypnosis. But Albert Osman knew this. He had a lot of clarity and really good recall. So again, was he telling the truth or was he fabricating? And it just seemed that with his data, with the information that he gave us about Sasquatch families and everything, it just seemed to make sense. He seemed to be very believable into what he was saying. And these Bigfoot researchers like John Green believed that he was telling the truth. But he's an amazing individual. In the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, what they did was, and this is kind of, I think this is new, but there are these, they call it IBT, Immersive Book Technology, and there's these QR codes. So if you were to take your camera from your phone and hit that, there'll be a little 3-4 minute video of me talking, doing a synopsis of that chapter. And certainly I do one on Albert Osman. I do one on the Patterson Gilman film because I just love that. That's just so juicy and exciting. And, everybody has something to say about that. And if you're into Bigfoot, you better be able to go and articulate that Patterson Gilman film one way or the other. You better be able to argue and debate what it is or what it isn't, because that's the best we have, I believe.
I'm just going off topic for a minute. Was it Russia where they had the female Bigfoot and they bred her? She kept losing her offspring, and so that's kind of in line of how this guy felt when they grabbed him out of his sleeping bag. I always thought that was interesting because it kind of, to me, humanity kind of bled over into something they shouldn't have ever mated with. But you get a little alcohol going. There's
Yeah. I had read a little about the female Almas, I believe they call them in Russia. They call them the abominable snowman yeti or the Almas. And there was a case of this Almas that was in the village and became tame and domesticated and worked in the village and all that. I mean, it's a lot of people thought it was a Sasquatch. But yeah, there's a lot of documentation about that.
And another thing I wanted to ask you about, do you have an opinion on the events that happened in Mount St. Helens where the volcano exploded and they said they found bodies there? Have you ever read into that, or do you have an opinion on that?
No. And where was this? Tell me again.
Mount St. Helens.
Yeah, no, I haven't. All I know is that the Pacific Northwest is an epicenter. Well, that's where everything started. 1947. That's where we saw the Mount Rainier. We saw the Kenneth Arnold saw the 9 discs, and then we had all the Bigfoot sightings there. 1950. So if 1947 was a red letter date, then the next one was 1958 with the Jerry Cruz footprints. He was a logger, a wildcatter, and that was when the Humboldt Times talked about Bigfoot. That was the first time that Bigfoot went into print. Humboldt Times, 1958, and that newspaper received thousands and thousands of letters from people that saw things that they believed the abominable snowman was in their backyard. So I don't know about the volcano and the bodies, but all I know is that the Pacific Northwest is an epicenter of weirdness. Probably the most Bigfoot sightings. There, and also British Columbia. So who knows, what's going on there, but there's definitely something, I think, of a paranormal nature that's there. Possibly a portal, possibly a doorway to another dimension. Who knows?
So when you first started and ventured into the Bigfoot subject, did you think you would go to the paranormal route, or as you said, the woo-woo route? I believe that's how you put it to me.
Well, I've heard, there's, let's face it, there's a war going on. Scientists, the scientific community doesn't like the cryptozoology community. And then there's a war going on too with Bigfoot hunters versus some of the academics. So there's name calling on both sides, and it's just not right. But I mean, they've called the Bigfoot hunters knuckle draggers and the apers and things like that. But I think that, if we all, work together and try to have a shared vocabulary and try to collectively define what we're seeing, I think that that's what we need. And I'll tell you what, it was J. Allen Hynek that talked about the high levels of high strangeness. And all we're doing is we're just looking at different amounts of high strangeness. And even with the Bigfoot, the ones that go out there looking for Bigfoot, I mean, they tell me that a lot of this is just boring. I mean, you're sitting around waiting and you don't always hear any wood knocks, or you don't always get somebody throwing a rock at you or whatever. But, they're out there doing the hard work and looking for proof. And I think that, that's what we need to do. Just respect one another and let everybody go and help weave this tapestry, because that's what it is. I mean, I'm doing my part just as you're doing you're doing a wonderful job to just educate the people and give our field a forum to talk about this. And that's what is so good, to be able to talk about it, maybe even debate it. But I mean, just to have a place where we could go and have a conversation, with a respectful conversation.
But to me, in theory, the woo-woo is something you just don't have an explanation for it. And what I have seen is that a lot of people have so attacked the woo-woo part of it that people are hesitant to express what they have encountered or experienced. And I don't care if you're woo, flesh and blood, because one minute I'm flesh and blood and one minute I'm like, don't know, but it seems like they've had such a hard time, but they've always stuck to their guns. That's the one thing.
I think fears kept a lot of us behind. J. Allen Hynek talked about, he was a skeptic, and he was with the government project. What was it? Grunge, Sign, and Blue Book. And he was a skeptic, and every time somebody saw anything, he said, no, it's hallucinations, it's marsh gas, it's reflections off of Venus. And then towards the end, he said, wait a second. He said, we are being disrespectful to these witnesses. We are just discounting them. And so towards the end, J. Allen Hynek, who coined the terms close encounters of the first, second, and third kind, he was the one that really came around full circle, and he started to believe. He was saying, if somebody sees something, let's just go and have them tell us what they saw and explain it, and then go from there. But don't be judgmental, and don't be saying that they're crazy, needy, hallucinating, or whatever. Just take their narrative, write it down, and go from there. And J. Allen Hynek did a lot, to bring science back into the picture. Because but he wasn't always like that. He was a real skeptic, and I don't know, he might have set us back a couple of decades, but towards the end he got it right. So I think that that's something that we all need to just take a look at and just keep on talking and discussing, and and trying to figure this thing out. But I like what you say. I've been on so many podcast shows, and they say, I don't think we'll ever figure it out. We'll never find the answer. And I'm more optimistic. I'm hoping that at some point that we do, that we do see what's going to be the truth. And, so.
Do you think we're ready for that? Because I think, I'm going to just throw my opinion out there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think everything we touch, we in a sense, we destroy, and some things are better left alone. But yet, because, my experiences and what I know, I go out for the experience. I'm not, but do you think sometimes we're just better off not knowing, or we're not ready to know?
Well, they said that back in the 50s and 60s. They said that if we were to discover an alien race, and I forget what that was called, maybe the Johnson Project or something, I forget, but there was a hypothesis that they didn't feel the American public was smart enough or mature enough to handle that, because it would turn our civilization upside down. That that God and Christianity and all the other religions would be challenged with a whole new paradigm, a whole new dynamic. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe some people would freak out and go crazy, but I think the rest of us would just be in awe. And one question that I get all the time is, what would you do if you saw a Bigfoot? And I don't know, because I look for Bigfoot up in Pennsylvania. I look for Bigfoot down here in Florida. I'm always looking. I'm always going off the beaten track. I would love to see one. The closest I came was a couple of months ago. My wife and I were on a trail, and I saw this shape. It looked like Bigfoot. I mean, it lunged to the left, and I'm thinking, God, this is it. And my heart pounded, and for a microsecond, I saw Sasquatch. But what it was this woman walking towards me, and she had this oversized coat with the padded shoulders. And I swear, at first I thought it was a Bigfoot, but I got such a thrill. I mean, that was memorable. It wasn't Bigfoot, but I wanted it to be one. And, so I can just imagine what it's like to see that. I mean, that has to change your life. I mean, I know I talk to people that have seen Bigfoot, and just amazing. The other thing too is, I think some people may have an ability. They may have a special ability to see things that are always there. They're gifted. They say women have a certain sixth sense and have a certain psychic abilities, more so than men. But I think that maybe all of us have some sort of latent abilities, but because of our 9-to-5 jobs, and because of the technology, and because of all the noise, it's hard to get there and to tap into that. And let's face it, there's a lot of noise out there. And if you're like me, I'm sure that you're glad that the elections are over. I just want to take a deep breath and just go on with my life, because that election was killing me too. So
I love them, even if they didn't vote the way I did. I still love everybody. They're still my friends. And you know what? It's okay to be different. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed not to agree on things. And for whatever reason, as society, for whatever reason, we forgot that you can disagree and still get along. Now, I want to pick your brain with your background in psychology, and I'm gonna pick your brain, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You get a lot of people. I had a gentleman on the other night, Greg, was on a stand, silence in the woods. He said it come through those trees like a freight train, and it was breaking trees, and it just stopped. Actually, it went by them. When you could step in the brain of a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you choose to call them, and they're going through and they're coming at you like a freight train. They instill a fear there. What do you think is going through their mind? With your background and your academic background, you've got to have an opinion on that.
Well, when it comes to Bigfoot, everything's off the table. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, I didn't go to college and major in Bigfoot 101 or Bigfoot 102, so I don't know. But I'll tell you what, my neighbor, and it's in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. I have a neighbor named Joe Lipinski who saw not one but two Bigfoot creatures, and he saw them in the distance. They turned around and looked at him like they were curious, and then they walked away. One was cinnamon color, the other one was black. One was larger, one was smaller. And we went out there later and looked for tracks, and we couldn't find anything. But I think that Bigfoot, when you read reports about Bigfoot, I remember there was one in a major publication, something like Is Bigfoot Real? And the guy was saying that Bigfoot is kind of predictable and boring in that they look at you, they're curious, and then they walk away. They don't attack, they walk away. There's one case in northeastern Pennsylvania. This guy is a district magistrate. He used to be law enforcement. He was a sheriff, and he got a call 11 o'clock at night. This widower was calling. The guy was letting his dog out to go to the bathroom, and he saw this 12-foot Bigfoot-like creature. And he said he wasn't afraid. It had kind eyes. It had kind eyes. And he called. He said, I got to talk to somebody. And so my friend Craig gave me that story. But in so many of these cases, you don't hear about Bigfoot attacking people, but just being curious and then running away. So that's the one thing. So what goes through their head? I think that they're just in survival mode. They probably do things that we do to survive. They eat, they drink, they procreate, they sleep. Who knows if they sleep in caves or what, or if it's that interdimensional thing, if they, ship shape into different dimensions. I mean, we just don't know because we don't at this point have that proof, but I've had several podcasters ask me, well, what do you think Bigfoot does all day? And, I think they just exist. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen one. I'd love to see one. And I would say this too. I want to say this, when we talk about ethics and morals and all that, I think for somebody to say that they've seen a Bigfoot, to just fabricate this and make it, I think that is like the worst travesty you can do to our field, the most disrespectful thing you can do. And in my book, I talk about those hoaxers, and I say those hoaxers have sold their souls. That's what they've done. So
And they tell some big stories too, don't they?
They sure do.
People believe them. I mean, you sit there. What's the odds of one person seeing over 30 Bigfoots and killing 3? But people, they buy a hook, line, and sinker, and it is a discredit to the community. But let me ask you this: speaking of hoaxing, what do you think is the difference between a person that's misinformed or misidentifies something and a hoaxer? Because it seems in the Bigfoot community, we confuse the two. There are people that really believe they see what they saw, and you're looking at a video, you don't see what they saw. I think one is intentional and one is misinformed.
Yeah.
Is there a difference to you?
Yeah, I think some of the hoaxers do this just for their infamy, for their 15 minutes of fame. They're, I think, little people that have very little going for them. But if they could go and say, hey, I saw a Bigfoot, and just start talking about that and confabulating and making it bigger and bigger, they get their notoriety and all that. For other people, maybe I think some people have seen cryptids. I think they have seen cryptids. Maybe some people have seen things, and maybe they're eyes played tricks on him. But like when I saw my, quote unquote Bigfoot thing, I mean, for that fraction of a second, whenever that was, I mean, it was for real. And it was, I mean, I'll never forget that. That was a great, it wasn't Bigfoot, but I thought it was. And that may be the closest I ever get, to seeing a Bigfoot. But I'll never forget when it was a woman wearing an oversized brownish jacket coming towards me on the trail, and that got me. That just really jacked me up. I mean, that was pretty cool.
Max didn't light a fire under you to want more.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was something. But my next project is called Paranormal Apocalypse, and let me see here if I can. And Victoria, I don't know if you can see this, but here's a prototype.
Wow, that's like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, and that's actually a gray. And that's a gray.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so author of the Sheppton mythology. The thing of it is, so after the Sheppton mythology, I published Coleridge Hoodoo, which is an awesome book, Flying Saucer Esoteric, which is an awesome book, and now the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. So I've been immersing myself in the paranormal. I've been talking to as many people as I can, researching, reading, writing, meeting with people, and just an amazing thing. We have a number of guest speaking engagements for 2025, and then I hope.
Coast to Coast.
Yeah, pardon?
You were on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, I was on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and that was pretty awesome. And man, there were a ton of people there that called in and then chatted with me afterwards. In northeastern Pennsylvania, there is St. George's Orthodox Church, and the statue bleeds myrrh. It's like the Virgin Mary bleeds myrrh, and people come there, make pilgrimages. I mean, I've never been there, but this guy called and was telling me all about it. He heard me on Coast to Coast. But there's certain things that people believe in, and and miracles are performed. So all things through God. I mean, God's doing this, not anything else. Not a statue, not a person, but I believe in that. So
you would have really enjoyed the guest I had last night. His name was Bradley, and he has a podcast called The Awakened Podcast. And he spoke about the 33rd parallel and all the historical events that happened around that. And his information is on the show. And I would love to see you contact him, or you guys just coordinate, because you guys are like the same.
Oh, wow.
You guys are on the same track. And I think actually I can see a show in the future with you and him doing a round table. Oh, I got smoke coming out my ears. But I think the two of you would click so much. And to compare notes, please look him up.
Okay.
And you will. Wow, that would be a powerhouse. Boy, I got to get you guys together.
Yeah. What's his last name?
I'll slaughter last names. How about if I send that to you?
Yeah, send it to me. Yeah, okay.
Layham, Bradley Layham. It's the Awakening Podcast.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, if anybody's interested in any of my books, I have a website. It's www.maximfurek.com, and also these books are sold on Amazon and Hangar One Publications. They gave us Monster Quest, and also Beyond the Fray. So but if any of your listeners are interested in an autographed copy, a signed copy, please contact me through my website, I'd be glad to go and hook you up with that. That'd be great.
Now, I'll have all that in the description. If I was a good little host, I would have had a banner. I just looked at it, and I should have had a banner going with that the whole time. But I'm going to have your bio and your links in the description of this show. And I know that there's going to be so many people that reach out to you. They probably already know all about you, but I just find you fascinating, and you're just so down to earth. I just love you, Max. You're wonderful. My question: how do you feel about the 33rd parallel? Because if you're in the paranormal, you've heard about the 33rd parallel and the landlines. Do you think that's all tied together? Because energy is everything. Vibration is everything.
Tesla said that. And I think Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, look at energy and vibration and all that. And I just think that all of these things, whether it's the 33rd parallel or string theory, or the fifth element, I just think that there needs to be more research by these physicists, these scientists, and they have to go and start looking in that direction. Keep in mind that with the interdimensional theory, that was Einstein's wormhole theory, that was from the 1930s. That was way back when. I mean, it's time that we updated some of these things and we had some new and improved science that we can take a look at. And again, the wormhole theory that Einstein, it wasn't his idea, but he updated it. And that's been, discussed by John Keel and Jacques Vallée and so many other people. So, I just think that we need more energies and focus, in the physics and and in the scientific realm. And so anyway, I think that this is something that we need to do. The one thing, being in Florida, I contacted Senator Marco Rubio. He was on the Congressional UFO Committee, and I sent him a letter and I said, listen, David Grush in July of 2023 claimed that he knows where the saucers are and he knows where the humanoids are. And he would go and reveal that at the right time. And I wrote a letter to Senator Rubio and I said, well, listen, let's have David Grush show us cards. I mean, okay, let's not just tease us, but let's show us the information. So I wrote him a letter. He sent me a letter back, and I'm formulating another letter and hopefully he will answer. Although I'm thinking that Senator Rubio is probably going to be in Trump's cabinet, so he may be out of the UFO business. But anyway, I'm going to send him another letter.
The senator from Tennessee is pretty outspoken. I can't remember his name.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Sean Ryan's show, and I love me some Sean Ryan. I love me some Ted Rubio. When you write him the letter, tell him Miss B said, hey,
Okay.
the wormhole.
Yes.
Wormhole. Isn't that where the Philadelphia experiment come from?
Well, the Philadelphia experiment was based on fact. Back in the 40s, what happened was these Allied ships would go over the Atlantic, and the Nazis had these undersea mines, and they would explode when the ship's magnetic field would trigger that bomb. So what they did was, I think the guy was from Canada, he developed a degaussing technique, and they would wrap coils around a ship, electrify it, and that would demagnetize the ship. So as they went over the Atlantic, they didn't have a magnetic signature. So that was the reality. That actually happened back around 42, 43. But supposedly in 1943, there was this experiment where they used an excessive amount of electricity. According to the Philadelphia experiment, this ship, the USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort, was teleported from Philadelphia Naval Yards to Norfolk, and then minutes later came back. Now, on the way back, there was a blending. The bodies became intertwined with the ship. And if you saw any of those movies, the most horrific parts was these bodies that were melted into the iron, into the bulkheads, and it was just really grotesque. But that was the source of the Philadelphia experiment, that it was a legitimate degaussing experiment that went wrong, and that people became psychotic. That was a big cover-up, that the government disavowed it. And then the story got even bigger. They claimed that this Philadelphia experiment would pertain to time travel, that they changed the epicenter to Montauk in Long Island. And so then Montauk became the epicenter of time travel, mind control, and all that. And don't discount it, because we know that the CIA was involved with the LSD experiments, the what is it, MK Ultra, okay, Ultra, and did a whole lot of things. So why not have one single place where they do experiments, whether it's on mind control or whatever? Let me say this: in June 2nd, I was invited to a esoteric conference, and I was talking about Dr. Frederick Santee, the White Witch, and which would make a great program all in itself. But anyway, Dr. Santee was pretty amazing. But the guy sitting next to me was from San Francisco. He worked for the military, and he was working in remote viewing. So take your pick, no matter if it's remote viewing, mind control, time travel, LSD, whatever. The government has an agency someplace.
Mind speak.
Yeah.
But the thing about remote viewing, and I think Montauk was a part of that too. Montauk, MK Ultra, all of that was kind of shifted over to Montauk. Could be wrong, but I was told by several people, remote viewing can be done by literally anyone, that we all possess that. I mean, you're not a special person because you can do it, but you've learned how to tap into that inner being or that part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty fascinating. Do you have any opinions on that? Because it's all there. It's all kind of mixes together.
In the Sheppton book, I talk about this out-of-body experience that the two miners had. And in Coleridge Hoodoo, I have a chapter on St. Teresa of Avila. St. Teresa was a 17th century Spanish mystic. And she believed, and she's just, I mean, read about her. She is just so incredible. God, I love her. But she believed that through prayer and meditation, we can reach states of ecstasy, rapture, and what she called flight of the soul, or an out-of-body experience. Now, again, you have to do the work. You have to pray and meditate. You have to get into that state, and you can tap into those innate powers. Some of us can. So I think we have that ability. But again, it's something you have to commit yourself to. You know, I mean, you have to get away from the civilization and society and everything, and just do that. So, yeah, I believe that we all have innate powers. I believe that, I believe that some people can see auras. I have people that come up to me. The people that come up to me, for the most, I mean, they believe I know things that they don't know, which is totally not true. I mean, I have no magic or any answers or anything. But the people that come up to me tell me about orbs that they see, orbs that follow them, and they also talk about the dead people that they talk to. So it's the orbs and the dead people, and they ask me about this. And I don't know. All I know is that some people are able to tap into that, and and have that ability. And I think it's a gift. I mean, I don't think it's a curse. I think it's a gift, but you need to respect it and, I don't know, understand it.
And find a discipline to tap into that part of you. So what I'm hearing is you basically have written something for a little of everyone.
Well,
a range of topics, and you hit on a lot of things that, especially in this community, and the people that I have in chat they're going to have a field day on your website, sir.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah. Doug Hycheck of Monster Quest said that I was the, what did he say? It was pretty neat. The 21st century incarnation of John Keel. And that is just, John Keel was an Indiana Jones. His life story, his legacy was amazing. That's not me. But I think that because I'm a little bit diverse in my interest, I'm eclectic. I think I'm a little bit like John Keel in that respect. But let's face it, the paranormal is so fascinating, and there's so many different ways to go and so many things to learn and to look at. And just, you, Victoria, you must have the best job in the world to be sitting there and experiencing so much. Your head must be filled with a whole lot of like really titillating stuff.
You know what? I love people. I will talk to people on any level. I will talk to someone that just got into the field, that's in awe about everything, and I will talk to someone on your level that's academic and just been everywhere and seen everything but the wind, and you probably caught a glimpse of it. But you do your research. I just love to talk to people, and I just love to hear their stories. And if I can learn something, you're right. It is one of the best opportunities I've been presented. And I get intimidated sometimes, like talking, like I was kind of intimidated talking to you tonight, but I have to remind myself, I'm like, shucks, Victoria, he puts his pants on the same way you do. Just go have fun.
Please don't. No, God, no, I don't want you to be intimidated or anything. I'm just like you. I worked in addictions. As a psychologist, I worked in addictions, and I loved rock and roll. And now I just fell into the paranormal. That's my story. Nothing. Everybody has their story. Everybody has their backstory. Everybody has their highs and lows, their wins and their losses. It's all good.
Do you get into some Santana? Do you like that kind of music, Santana?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm Winning. It's got to be my favorite song. I'm Winning.
I love that. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
It's a good tune. I'm actually gonna buy the rights to that and put it at the beginning of my shows, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So before we go, what is your definition of paranormal?
Okay, well, I think paranormal is fits into the scientific. I think that the paranormal and science are pretty much the same. It's just that we haven't come up with the rules, the scientific rules. And I'll give you the best example. It's like real, pedestrian, but when you see an apple fall, there's cause and effect. So we see it fall, and we know that it's falling because of Newton's law of gravity. So that's an easy one, the cause and effect. But when we see orbs in the sky, lights in the sky, cryptids, we see the effect, but we don't know what the cause is. Now, it may be scientific. There may be a perfect explanation for what we're looking at, but we really don't know. I'll say this too, with as far as flying saucers or UAPs, 3% of them we can identify. What are the possibilities? They're either ours, they either belong to Russia, Iran, China, or somebody else, or they're intergalactic, and I think that's passé. To think about visitors from another planet traveling millions of light years, I think it's just about impossible to do that. I really think you have to look at it at the interdimensional theory. So it's either those UAPs are either ours, theirs, or interdimensional. One other thing, I talk a lot about the Patterson Gilman film of 1967. We also need to talk about on the other side with the UAPs, the United States Navy Tic Tac video from 2004. And here's this Tic Tac that hovered. It was solid. It zigzagged. It was the most tremendous G-force that humans couldn't withstand. And then, and the Pentagon at that time called UFOs UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This thing hovered and then it went under the water. So now the Pentagon is calling these unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So we went from from UFOs to UAPs and two different types of UAPs. But that Patterson Gilman film of 1967 has a parallel relevance to the UAP sighting of 2004. Both of those are what I call the Holy Grail. They're, pretty good evidence that there's something there. We don't know what it is, but it's tangible, it's solid, it's not hallucinations, so.
Hey, Max, check this out. I got something to go with that. Right down the street from where we live, there's this gentleman that was in this hunting stand. Gentleman's very well known in our area. Has a good reputation. Not known to lie. He's in his hunting stand and he saw one of those Tic Tac things. Only he described it as like a cigar. He's in this hunting stand and this thing hovers over a deer. Just hovers there. He said, just stay still. And after a few minutes, it was gone. I mean, somebody totally across the United States saw the same thing. It's out there. And I don't know, that might have been 5 years ago.
Yeah. There's, and think of all the things that people are saying that aren't reporting because of fear. They're afraid of being ridiculed, even today.
Let me ask you this, and I know I've had you on a while, and do you think when it comes to Bigfoot and the paranormal, do you think the answer might be so simple that we just don't get it?
Boy, well, you're right about we don't get it. That's true. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. You look at all the possibilities. Could it be a collective psychic projection that we all want to believe in something, and so like we're projecting these energies there and creating something, or mass hallucinations? Could it be a Jungian collective unconscious, that what we're seeing is residue from our ancestors, cavemen that saw things, and that it's in our amygdala. We carry this with us, with that DNA, and we have DNA from way back when. I mean, that's who we are, what we are, So I don't know. But in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I explore some of those possibilities. I would encourage your listeners, if they're into Sasquatch, to pick up a copy, and then also if they get a copy, please put a review on Amazon. It just means a whole lot for authors such as myself. It does a whole lot. So, but could it be that simple that we're missing it? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, but I don't know what that would equate to.
Sometimes the simple solution is the one we overlook sometimes, but I want you to say whatever you want to say, or put whatever you want to put out there before we close the show. If there's anything you want to touch on that we have not touched on, I want you to take as much time as you need to touch on anything. I know the Four Horsemen, you dedicated your book for them. Yeah, they did the hard work. No, I just want to say something to your listeners. First of all, for those of you that hung in for this hour, thank you for listening. I hope this was informative and somewhat intelligent, and I hope like I was able to articulate my some of my theories and beliefs. And thank you for your interest in the paranormal, because it's important that together we do this. This is our community, and we have shared values and beliefs, and this is a good thing. So again, like, we're all searching for answers, and that's why shows like Victoria's are so important, that we could go and have an exchange of ideas, and and discuss possibilities. So that's what I have to say. So thank you for listening to me. I'm Maxim Furek. I'm a paranormal author, and I'm having the time of my life. I mean, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, and it's bringing me a whole lot of joy. So, and meeting so many wonderful people. So, thank you, Victoria. Well, I think you're fabulous. and I think you have a lot to offer community. And I hope you come back on maybe on the live show so people can pick your brain, because I think there's a lot there worth exploring, and you have a lot to offer. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Okay, have a good evening, and we will keep in touch.
Bye.